and it would have been wonderful. But something went wrong. It happened in the Garden of Eden when Adam doubted what God had said, and when Adam was ambitious, and he listened to the spoken word, and he ate the forbidden food, and the rest is history. Now, you could think, well, maybe it's just a myth, or even if you believe that it's true, which I do, of course, then you could say, well, Adam was a weak-charactered guy. But you know something? You see the same thing take place in everybody's lives all around you. Just look at your parents, for example, if you're like the average person, and see how they started off young, full of life, full of happiness. Of course, they had baggage from the past, from their home life, from a father who wasn't there for them, especially your mom. Chances are, her father wasn't there for her. There was a distance. Okay? And either he was gone, or she didn't even know who he was, or he was there, but he was sort of a non-factor. There's something missing. So she went out into the world looking for love, and she found your dad, okay? And he came from a home with a weak father, an absent father who wasn't there for people, okay? And he came from a home with a mom, undoubtedly, if he's like most people, who was angry at her husband, resented her husband. And if, like most people, a mom who basically ruled the home. Dad was weak. Dad was wrong. Dad was like a big kid, a big spoiled kid, or absent, not there, compensated, or hope not, but some dads are angry, violent, alcoholics, drunks, drug addicts. Hopefully he wasn't that way, but even if he was a decent guy, she resented him anyway. His mom resented him anyway. So they came from that kind of a home, and they had baggage from that past. Not to mention other traumas along the way, so they got married, and they thought they were going to live happily ever after. But what happened? Well, you saw what happened. If your parents are like most parents, then what happened was things deteriorated. The relationship deteriorated. There were fights, anger, resentment, suppressed anger, hostility. Your mom resented your dad and judged him. Your dad was angry, or he wasn't there. He threw in the towel and just went out in the garage and worked and sat in front of the television set or went off to work. And threw in the towel, and mom ran and ruined everybody's lives. Okay? And before you know it, maybe there was a divorce. And then there were financial problems and health problems and arguments. Plus, they made a lot of mistakes. Even if they were decent parents, halfway decent, they made mistakes in your upbringing. And then you saw them at the end of, I was going to say at the end of the line, after everything had gone wrong, well, then maybe you were guilty, very guilty for having resented them. See, maybe you escaped from home. A lot of kids do, because their mom is always sick, and there's always fighting and undercurrents of resentment, so on. And so maybe you got away from home, went off to college or to work. And there was relief for a while. It's nice to be away from the pressure cooker home with all the negativity. But before you know it, you had boyfriend issues or girlfriend issues, and before you know it, you got married or lived together, and then it was the same. Then you began to see the same pattern that happened to your parents happened to you. Now you were really surprised at that, because you had vowed that it would never happen to you what happened to them. And lo and behold, there it is. Because you see, all we can do is keep repeating the same old pattern, the archetypal pattern of a weak, ambitious man, an egotistical man, and a crafty woman, And her craftiness was coached, though. Who coached her craftiness? See? And he failed. Just the same way as your dad undoubtedly married your mom for the wrong reasons, just like you married your wife for the wrong reasons. You needed someone to support your ego if you're a man. And if you're a lady, you found a man who was weak for you and needed you to support his ego, and it made you feel good and important. And it gave you security, but then in the long run, it was insecurity, because then you had married a weak man who needed support. And if he didn't get it from you, then he'd get it from another woman, or from the bottle, or from work, or from somewhere, you see. So he was an easily tempted man of weak character, even if he was halfway decent. And a woman who was unhappy. So you have unhappy, fierce wives and wimpy, angry husbands or partners. So that it repeats itself all over again. So what you have to see is that that's the case. And then you have to realize that it doesn't, and then the other thing is it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. So remember I said that life was to be a great adventure like Star Trek? Well, it is. It's supposed to be. But there are some, you need a couple of things. First of all, you need a little bit of help to get out of your thinking where most people are lost between their two ears. See, what happens is we fail in life. I talked about Adam's failure, your parents' failure, your failure. See, you fail with your partner, with your kids, where you could have been patient, you were impatient. Where you could have overlooked, you judged. Where you could have done the right thing, you went for expediency. See? Over and over again. In fact, you sinned by compulsion. Because all you inherited was this fallen ego life. So that's good news in a way, because now you can see it wasn't your fault. It's not your fault of the nature you inherited. So we don't want to condemn it. Neither condemn it nor condone it. We want to understand it. But what I was going to say is that you need to learn how to get out of your thoughts. See, our thoughts rise up. The imagination rises up to shield us from seeing our failure. So every time you fail, you tend to lose awareness. So you have to learn to reverse that process, and the meditation that I have helps.